And now let's make our transition over to lesson number 5. And this is beginning to talk about now John the Baptist. What does Mark chapter 1 verse 1 say? Okay, the beginning of the gospel of the Son of God. Okay, so beginning in this episode, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, it kind of makes you think a little bit about Genesis 1 verse 1. What did Genesis 1 verse 1 say? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Here, what is beginning? His ministry, the beginning of the gospel. So, a new creative work in Christ coming to the earth. And what was that going to be? The good news. Okay, Luke chapter 3. Luke chapter 3. And while you're looking at it, I just want you to note that in the copies, in the printed copies, you will see when we have parallel accounts, there will be account that will be a little bit, that'll be gray. That is going to be the account that we will focus on. So you saw in Luke chapter 3, in the heading of that in your material, Luke chapter 3 is kind of in gray because that's intended for us as the main focus. So, Luke chapter 3, how does Luke put this? Now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip, tetrarch of Iturea, and the region of Trachonitis and Lysanias, and tetrarch of Abilene, while Annas and Caiaphas were high priests. Okay? So lots to involved there. Lots and lots put in there. So first of all, let's just run down a list of the Roman emperors. I mentioned to you in the book of Revelation about the idea in the sermon that John was writing about a group of individuals in the Roman government trying to force children of God to worship the emperor. So because Christians would stand against that, they could worship only Jesus Christ, they would be persecuted. That was probably in the time or in the reign of this last individual that's mentioned that closes the New Testament time. Now, I think that persecution would have gone beyond just this person's time, but it would have likely began right about this time. But you see, the first one is Augustus. We talked about him in the period between the Testaments. His son is Tiberius. He was the successor of Augustus. Okay, so his reign began in AD 11, in AUC 765. Let me explain that. There are lots of you who will have like study Bibles, and those study Bibles may give a time period of AUC. That's a Latin phrase basically meaning from the founding of the city. So in the year 765 was 765 years after Rome was founded. AUC. So this time period coincided with 11 AD. That's when Tiberius began a joint rule. Now, the time that Luke is talking about, the 15th year, would place the beginning of Jesus' ministry in AD 26. In AD 26, which would put his crucifixion somewhere around 29 or 30. The founding of the church, somewhere around 29 or 30. So this actually also coincides with John chapter 2, because John chapter 2 mentions that the temple construction had begun 46 years prior in 19 BC. So 19 BC, you add 46 years to that, gets you to about 26 AD. That's also the 15th year of Tiberius' reign, so that's pretty certain that this is when Jesus' ministry began. There are lots of older and you'll see I still have tons of information that will put Jesus' death, but specifically the founding of the church in 33 AD. And that takes it from the very reasonable counting of Jesus being born, right in 1 AD. But we've already shown that was mistaken because of the way that the calendar was done centuries after that. From the time that we know, from what Luke gives and from what John gives, Jesus would have started his personal ministry not in 30, but probably about in 26 AD. Okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. Also as well, Tiberius was not a very good ruler. He was very slothful, he was self-indulgent, he was licentious, he was vindictive, and he was cruel. He was apparently someone who never really wanted to be an emperor. This sometimes happens, you have a father, very, very good, very, very much wants to be there, very good at doing it. But then the son comes along and the son doesn't really have any interest in it. That was sort of the situation with Tiberius and Augustus. But Luke also mentions someone else. Right after Tiberius, he mentions who? Pilate. Okay, Pontius Pilate, obviously going to play a big part in the account of Jesus later on. Then he mentions Herod. This is Herod who? Antipas. Probably the most important thing that we need to know about Herod Antipas is he is indeed the Herod who what? Killed John the Baptist. The Herod who killed John the Baptist. He's also the Herod who built Caesarea. And the Caesarea that Philip goes to, the Caesarea that Paul goes to. This is Herod. But then also his brother Philip, who is Tetrarch of Iturea and the region of Trachonitis, Licinius, the Tetrarch of Abilene. And so these are sections up in, these are sections that are mainly up in the north, that Luke also goes ahead and gives us a rundown of who's going to rule them. So all of these areas up in here, because we already know who's going to be the ruler of Judea. Who's governor of Judea? Pilate is. But in these other sections, we have these individuals. And then in verse 2, finally, we have who? Verse 2 mentions who? Annas and Caiaphas. So let me just say this before the bell rings. In giving all of these individuals, what Luke is doing is not only cementing this period of time where Jesus is becoming or is starting his personal work and giving us a time frame for us to know it, but he's also, with so many specifics, the more specifics that you have, the more that you have to scrutinize. So in having all of these specifics, we have the ability to go back and see if all of these people actually existed. What does the Bible teach about all of these people? Was Luke accurate when he said that this person was a ruler here and that person was a ruler there and in that time period? The more specifics we have, the more we can verify that the Gospels were actually telling us the truth. So while it might seem dry, these first couple of verses, They are incredibly important for us to understand not only the New Testament world, but Luke's understanding and accuracy in describing the New Testament world. So next week we'll get to John the Baptist and start looking at what all John the Baptist does in his ministry.